the friendship is sharing deal.
Because I want one of your McNuggets.
And I need some of your Quarter Pounder.
There's a deal for everyone at McDonald's. Get one favorite like 10-piece chicken McNuggets, a Quarter Pounder, or a Big Mac, and get another for just $1. Price and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.
To get the Crime Writers on Aftershow right now, go to patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And this week, when the head of a cryptocurrency exchange suddenly died, his clients lost access to millions of dollars in Bitcoin. Was that the plan all along? We'll review Exit Scam. Then, a series of bombings rocked London's black and gay neighborhoods. Can a regular chap turned spy find the neo-Nazi behind the attacks? We'll talk about Netflix's nail bomber, Manhunt. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of the These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and true crime co-author, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
I'm not the love of your life anymore?
Oh, you know what? Only because you're wearing that shirt and those shorts. Otherwise, you are, though. 100%.
Okay, it's the shirt is the Crime Writers On shirt that, you know, if you subscribe to the newsletters, there's always new merch involved.
Yeah.
And so there's the four of us, the cartoon faces.
But this
saying
one's
crime.
vintage.
Yeah, it's vintage. Well, it's because I've been wearing it all the time.
Yes.
And what about my shorts?
And this is the one with the disputed Toby chin situation.
Oh, right.
It's the old Toby.
The old
No,
Toby had
it's not
3
that.
chins.
I actually believe that Toby was actually looking down when the photo was taken,
Yes.
that the drawing was made from. Because Toby, like, there's a lot of chins. It's a very disputed piece of art.
Toby, Jeff Lasseter just hates you. He's the artist.
Jeff
He just hates
Lasseter,
you. Yeah.
we have a huge feud going.
Also with us is author, private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and former Fenway Virgin, Laura Bricker. Hello, Laura.
Hello, Rebecca. Yeah, I am 44 years old, and I finally went to my first Red Sox game.
Yes.
Ooh, how was it?
Well, it was good, except it got rained out halfway through.
Sounds like a Red Sox game. Well, you know what? You only had to watch half of it, so that's like a plus.
What was the capacity? Were they weren't at 100%?
No,
yet, were they?
I think they're opening up to 100% on Friday. So there was definitely seats blocked off. They had the seats zip tied up, so you couldn't even put certain seats down, which was kind of interesting.
So you got all the fun without the boredom of watching baseball.
Yeah, although I can totally get behind baseball because you don't have to pay too much attention.
Yes.
And it's kind of relaxing. There's not as much violence as football.
Yep.
And, I could kind of get behind that.
So I have a whole idea for baseball. I'm just going to share it right now. And if some enterprising sports producers out there listening, here it is. For live fans who want to show up late, or for TV people who don't care about most of the game, just the results, the 7th inning stretch, they should produce a montage of the first 7 innings so that you can show up to the field, just watch a montage on the screen, and then just sit for the last 2 innings, or turn on your TV, watch a montage, and then just watch the final 2 innings. Is that not a brilliant solution to the baseball conundrum?
Says the person who does not like sports.
Yeah.
I like sports, just not that one. Okay, sorry,
I've
Kevin.
got a great
It's
way
called
of,
Cliff Notes baseball.
yeah.
Exactly.
I got a great way of fixing HGTV and me.
What's that?
How about just the reveals?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I have a whole idea for an HGTV spinoff channel that's just the reveals. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Just the reveals. Okay. Finally, our captain of woke cynicism, the author of the City Trilogy, host of the Strange Arrivals podcast from iHeart, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hello, Toby.
Hello, Rebecca.
Toby, you are wearing very little clothing. You look very hot. What is going on?
it's like 95 degrees in here.
Oh, that's not the kind of hot I was talking about. So it's literally hot there?
That was the way I chose to interpret it.
Toby's wearing a basketball.
Yeah, I'm wearing a
game
basketball. Yeah,
A Thunder
jersey that I got
jersey.
for it's a Steven Adams jersey.
All I know is I see a lot of triceps going on there. Toby's clearly been lifting.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pump out some curls in between my
He's
talking
gonna do some
moments.
dips when Laura's talking. So, Kevin, before we start the podcast, I have a quick maybe congratulations for you.
Yeah?
Weather dependent.
Right.
By the time this podcast drops, you may be a certified New Hampshire
No.
baseball umpire.
No, it's a 2-year program.
Oh, shit.
Just I'll pass the first year.
Okay. So you'll be a halfway
be-
certified.
I'll be asked to now take a written exam. I'll be invited to the written exam.
Nice.
Isn't your field test after we tape this but before it drops? If storms don't happen?
Yeah, it looks like there's rain and it's a tournament. So there's like a whole bunch of games happening, and so I have to do 2 games, 1 game behind the plate and 1 game on the bases, and I was basically told if I show up, I'll pass.
Yes.
So
Nice.
it doesn't really matter, what my strike zone is like.
Yes.
But I'm still working it. I'm working it.
So, for those of you who have missed the last couple episodes, Kevin has taken on a new avocation as a high school baseball umpire, which is the greatest thing to ever happen to our family.
Yeah, I just go for the montage in the 7th inning.
No.
That's right.
It's the greatest thing to ever happen to our family because it brings you joy.
Okay.
You have a bunch of new clothing hanging in your office of your baseball attire.
Oh, yeah, including my athletic supporter.
And we have amazing stories to talk about over dinner, like that time you sent a catcher in high school out to scold the pitcher about some shit he was doing so that you didn't have to do it.
That's why the umpire has a rapport with the catcher. You want to keep your guy in there. You tell him to go out there and shut the fuck up. I didn't say shut the fuck up, but that's
you
what I meant.
told a high school student to go admonish another high school student. I love that tactic. I
Yeah.
love it.
Oh, the other umpires loved it too. I got high points for that.
Nice. All right. So you're almost there?
I'm almost there.
You're almost
yeah.
halfway there.
I'm halfway there. Yeah.
Can't wait. I can't
This
wait.
time next year, baby.
It's like halfway to Christmas in July.
Yes. The thing is, if you pass the apprenticeship, what happens is that you get patched. Means you get a patch that you get to wear on your shirt. It's like getting a coat when
It's
you're
like
a doctor.
biker gang.
Yeah. The upside though is that when I bought the shirt, it already came with the patch. So I guess I could just fuck off for a while.
Yes, and Toby is now a current team member of the Thunder because he has the jersey.
We bought the basketball
That's
jersey.
true.
It came with the number. Yeah. So.
It came with the name on the back.
Yeah.
All right.
That's my exit scam.
Should we just go ahead and start our podcast now? Mm-hmm. Let's get it done. Leading off.
The doctors revived him and put him on a ventilator, but he went into cardiac arrest again. He was revived one more time, but then his heart stopped for good. And at 7:26 p.m. on December 9th, 2018, Gerald Cotton was pronounced dead.
Gerald Cotton was the head of Canada's largest Bitcoin exchange. While on his honeymoon to India, Jerry became ill and died of complications from Crohn's disease. His sudden death left the exchange in the lurch because no one else had the password that controlled the hundreds of millions of dollars in cryptocurrency.
Because a lot of people have lost the Bitcoin, a lot of Bitcoins. They're just sort of floating around there. They're not retrievable at all. It's like burning cash in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's next to impossible to ever recover those coins.
But the circumstances of his death and loss of their money made investors ask the question, did Jerry fake his demise to either cover substantial losses or to abscond with an untraceable fortune?
To them, this didn't sound like a case of carelessness or bad luck. It sounded like a scam. And in Bitcoin, if something sounds like a scam, it usually is.
In the 8-part podcast, Exit Scam from Odyssey, host Aaron Lammer digs into Jerry's mysterious past and shady associates who started by running minor Ponzi schemes before building a multi-million-dollar digital wallet filled with other people's money. Did this missing crypto king take a fortune to his grave or take it on the run? Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about plot points from the first 5 episodes of Exit Scam. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for the thumbs up or thumbs down review. Kevin.
Yeah.
This podcast stressed you out because when you heard...
Oh, my God.
When you heard that in order to access your crypto money, you had to have in your hand a 64-digit randomly generated password, and if you didn't have that password, your money was gone forever, you seem extremely nervous about
I started to hyperventilate at the thought. I was like, where would I even write that down, and where I pull it out, and then like to copy it, you know, like you're looking up and you're typing the thing in, and it's like, okay, it's a Q, it's a 7, it's is that a 3 or an E? And oh god, I gotta go. If you get it wrong, you have to start all over again.
It's like the old rotary phone situation where you dial the phone number and you're like,
yeah. But I gotta say, look, the idea of what is happening here is very simple. Look, when we did the missing crypto queen, there was an awful lot of kind of setting it up as far as, you know, what technically is going on as far as the tech side on the cryptocurrency. And I think that was necessary, and they did a good job explaining it. In this case, you only have to really know one thing. They lost the password. Allegedly, right. But you can understand what that predicament is.
Yeah. And
then you attach, well, and then what does that mean? Oh, it means people can't get to $215 million or whatever it is.
Yeah.
As a plot device, and, you know, I'm using a fictional term here to applying it to a non-fictional story. It in its simplicity, it is brilliant because that's all you got to know. It's like an Agatha Christie murder mystery, right? That's all you need to know to get into it.
So, Laura Bricker, listening to episode 1 of this podcast on one of my long walks, I got about to the halfway point and I thought, oh my God, Laura Bricker's going to love this fucking podcast, if nothing else, for the fact that we learn there is a whole faking your death industry and faking your death private investigators. Laura Bricker, scale of 1 to 100, how much do you want to have the job of a faking people's death private investigator where your only job is to find out if someone faked their death?
94. Oh my God. I like love stories of people faking their deaths. And it's just one of those things that totally fascinates me. So I was, as you know, you rightly predicted, Rebecca, I was all in. But I mean, this took it like, so we had a guy in our town a while back and the town was like,
hang on.
They were split like 50-50 if this guy faked his death. And it's like, how would you do it? But this podcast takes it to a new level. Because not only, like India, that there's a whole industry in India where you go, you get a fake death certificate.
Let's say you decided that you died in a car accident. Well, you can get the police accident report. You can get the identification of the body. Oh, I'm sorry. You can get a doctor's report. You can get a coroner's report. And you can get the death certificate, all for about $1,000. You can get a body for a few $1,000s.
And the fact that so many people are doing it, that there's investigators looking into it, like, where are these people going? I have so many questions about the fake death industry.
Now, the investigator we meet in episode 1 tells Aaron that he has resolved more than 750 fake death cases. Toby Ball, were you surprised to hear that in a country like India, you can get the whole death package, including a body, a death certificate, a doctor's report, like all the whole stuff for $1,000? I mean, I would have thought, it would cost more, but I also thought it would be harder. What did you think of hearing about that, Toby?
Well, I think $1,000 goes further in India.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I was kind of with Laura. I was like, how many people actually do this? Because now I'm like tempted, like if anybody I ever know goes to India and doesn't come back, I'll just assume.
Yeah.
They like kept on going to Thailand and are like living it up on some island or something. Yeah, it's really strange, but I guess it's true. And I think, I don't know, I think there's definitely a detective novel series in that guy's job of tracking down people who've faked their own deaths.
Philip Marlowe.
Now, like
fake death detective.
Many years ago when I was a talk show producer, we did a segment about rich people faking their deaths, which is surprisingly common. And it was like right around the time that Ken Lay died in prison. And my first thought from
Did he die in prison?
Yeah, like a heart attack or something.
I know he died, but I thought he died before.
I don't know. My very first thought was he's not dead. He faked his death. Like, there's no reason why you would think otherwise. I mean, because I remember reading the article that was like in Mother Jones or something, and it was basically like, aside from the whole industry in India, there's also this whole industry in the U.S. where you can just bribe people and they'll say that you died. Like, Who's to say you didn't if you give somebody enough money? Anyway,
right.
I'm fascinated by it too. Toby, another thing that...
He died in Colorado 3 months before being sentenced.
He's alive. So he's alive. He's like in Mexico on a beach, right?
Could be.
Somewhere in the developing world on like a gorgeous beach. Gotta be.
You can't slander the dead, so go for it.
I have one more fake death story, and then I swear I'm done, and I'll make it quick.
Don't make it quick. Go ahead. Tell us all of it, Laura.
Well, there was a story I actually wrote one time for the newspaper, and it was really interesting. It was about this guy, what was his name? Kevin Cottrell. And he was being tried for the third time on the same charge. Twice it had been tried in like either mistrial or dropped or whatever. And so it was coming back for a third time. And he was dating a police chief's daughter at the time that this trial was coming up for the third time. And he supposedly like jumped off that bridge in Portsmouth that everybody jumps off to kill themselves. But they never found his body.
Yeah.
And it was the timing, the third trials, but it was like, there was a lot of, and so I remember interviewing like lobstermen about like what it was like when you found bodies. And like, it was, I mean, I'm sure you guys did that with the case you guys had with the body in the Piscataqua that was never found. I don't know. I think the fake death thing, I think that needs to be a whole podcast.
Listen, my kid's grandmother, so my ex-husband's mother, got into a car accident on a bridge because there were barriers set up because divers were looking for a guy who it later turned out had faked his own death. So this is a thing. Kevin, it is a thing. So
it is a thing.
Before we move on to
And she went off the bridge because she saw a sign that said, fresh hot popcorn.
Yes, the sign had been put there by the vendors who had been called in to feed the divers. It's a whole thing. Henry is, in fact, making a podcast about it.
Try to pull over to the side of the bridge and just keep going.
So, Kevin, before we get to more substance of this podcast, could I just make one point that I have just been making to you for weeks?
Absolutely.
Does the theme song to this show not completely slap? It slaps, does it not?
If you say so.
Guys, I want this to be my entrance music every time I walk into a room. Toby, would you be okay with that?
Yeah, whatever makes you happy.
Laura, you made a note. The music is incredible, is it not?
Yeah, I loved the music. I felt like it really went well with the story, but it was just every time I heard it, I was like, ooh, more fake death, more cryptocurrency. Like it had sort of like an exciting, I heard that. And then every time I heard the podcast, I kept thinking, not Dan Taberski. It's not Dan Taberski, even though it sounds exactly like Dan Taberski.
Aaron Lemmer's voice is definitely similar in his sort of wry delivery. Toby, question for you about cryptocurrency generally. So the thing we hear about Quadriga, which is this Canada's largest exchange, which, by the way, we should say is only the largest exchange because the other one failed. Yeah. Like it was a tiny exchange and the other one failed, then it became large exchange. The whole point here is that if you're kind of interested in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, there's an exchange where you can put your money in and invest in it, and it's super easy. As we find out, though, the complication, though, is that somebody could just, steal all your money. What do you think about the idea of investing in a currency like this that you need to use an exchange to make it super easy to do? Is that scary? Because isn't that, to me, it's just also sort of like the funds I invested in our IRA. Like, I don't know how that works either. Is this different than that for you, Toby?
I guess it's a little bit different. I don't know. My son was like, you got to invest in Bitcoin like years ago.
He was right. Years ago.
If we'd done it, we'd be on easy street. But I just don't feel like I totally understand it. Like, even though I've listened to now several podcasts that have been trying to explain it to me. And, I guess it'd be the kind of thing I'd be more comfortable with if I spent some time researching it. But because it doesn't work the way other financial things that you're used to work, like I have a hard time kind of wrapping my head about what your expectation should be about it. It seems like it's completely more manipulable by, just perceptions of things than maybe something that was more solid. Like I'm not sure what a Bitcoin necessarily represents. And I'm saying all this stuff out of just absolute complete ignorance because I'm sure there's like 1,000 people who are listening to this right now and been like, you're an idiot. Like do a little research. Now, it's this.
Toby, invest in gold bullion. That's what I'm going to do. I think that's much safer. There's a lot more security in it.
But but there's
it's a solid object you can hold.
Yeah,
but even like stocks and bonds, you've got like this huge history that you can take a look at about how it works, right? I mean, there's history of bad stuff happening, and the consistent returns, and like what different regulations will mean for different things. And I just don't think Bitcoin or any of those other currencies have been out long enough to like have this sort of amount of data where you can make, for somebody like me, an informed choice. Like I'm sure there's a lot of other people who do the work and are confident in it and can do well in it, but
not you.
Clearly not me.
Well, I think the thing that we tend to underestimate is the appeal of easy money. And I think a lot of people that get involved in cryptocurrency are like, oh, this is the new thing. And look, it went up 1,000,000,000%. And so that's what attracts them to it, despite the fact if the industry itself has a term called exit scam, it has a known term, then that ought to be a big red flag, right?
Yeah, but there are plenty of similar scams in like regular financial or more conventional financial. Ponzi scheme is an example of one of those things.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Ponzi, because when I was writing my book on the lottery, I used an anecdote that was from, I forget the author's name, but the book was called Ponzi's Scheme. And it was about Ponzi and what the scheme actually was and how it worked. And it had this anecdote.
It had to do with stamps, right?
It actually did have to do with arbitrage with international stamps. And they opened with this anecdote about that came out of a newspaper around the turn of the century, and it was of a traveling salesman who went to the home of a little old lady and produced this box with this machine with a little crank handle. And you put a little blank piece of paper in and you crank the handle, and out comes a $20 bill. And he sold it to her for, $10 or whatever it was, and he went on his way. And then, of course, the little old lady used it and nothing came out. And so the guy was arrested. And what people were angry about was that he sold her a machine that didn't work and give the money. Not that it was a scam. They thought it was, give that lady one of your machines that actually prints money.
Yeah.
Because we just love the idea of easy money.
Yeah.
And look, why do we throw a bunch of money in a 401k? I mean, honestly, they put you in a conference room at work. They tell you can put the money in, and you're like, I'm going to be old someday. I don't know what any of this stuff is. I just assume at the end I'm going to have a lot of money.
Listen, all of the financial managers listening to this podcast are going to turn over in their grave when I say this.
They probably are, yeah.
The stock market, by the way, is also just a speculative scam. It's
gambling.
It has to do with what you think. It doesn't have to do with really what's real.
But it does take more than one password
to
bring the whole system
that
down.
Part, really
stressed you the fuck out, right, Laura?
No, it did. I was like, what the hell? Like, how can this be? Like, I can't believe they've gotten away with that. I mean, think of all the ways that you're so easily able to recover your password for everything else in the world, right?
Yeah.
It blows me away.
So I want to talk about Jerry, and we get into his history a little bit. And, the podcast sort of sets us up with the notion that he may be an okay guy who may have kind of turned into a scammer later, maybe. And then we learn a little bit about his history. And we learn by the ages of like 15 and 16, he had perpetrated multiple Ponzi schemes on the internet, basically like stealing people's money. And the way that he did it was by saying, this isn't a Ponzi scheme. And then literally describing a Ponzi scheme to get people to invest.
That was Jerry's pitch. S&S Investments was definitely not a Ponzi scheme, but somehow it generated even better returns than most Ponzi schemes. And amazingly, it seemed to work.
So, Toby, are you disappointed in your kids that they have not come up with this yet in your own household?
Seems like a lack of ambition. Yeah, I wish that there was a little bit more about like what his situation was. Like, who the hell were his parents? Like, where did he come up with this?
They were nice. He talked about his parents. This was a thing, man. I don't know if you know this, but I'm just going to say
I don't. I'll just go right ahead and say I don't.
Our favorite villainous podcaster, Mike Boudet, who we know for a lot of other horrible things, was covered in a news story many years ago for doing a scam on the internet.
20 years ago, yeah.
A scam on the internet called Make Mike a Millionaire, where he would just get people to give him money for no reason.
What?
Like there was I'll send you the video.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I saw the clip.
There's a whole, and by the way, I kept thinking about him because one of the scams that Jerry came up with was called what? S&S was one of his like Ponzi scams.
It said sword and scale.
I was just like, oh my God, it's a Mike Boudet. Anyway, so yeah, this was a whole era of just like cheating people on the internet. Laura, were you surprised to find out that there were like whole forums where like scammers get together on the internet and talk about like, hey, I got this email list from the local Rotary. Like, how do I monetize it?
Yeah, the email list thing was crazy. The way they were sharing that. I mean, I guess I kind of thought of the scammers as being like these lone wolves. I didn't think that they were like teaming up. But I guess, you know what? There's probably an online forum for everything. I mean, God knows I found every cat forum and everything else, cat detective forum that I'm in. But yeah, the email, like the way that they were monetizing it when they accidentally like didn't like blind CC when they sent out some sort of newsletter. That was interesting. It's makes you even more paranoid. I mean, I get a lot of after, Rebecca, you had your recent hacking episode with your email. So I'm like, I'm so paranoid now. And I'm like, why am I getting these weird emails? I'm like, is it because I clicked on Rebecca's email? Or am I just getting more? Who knows? Who knows?
Listen, it's not my fault. It's my IT department at work's fault. Anyway, so Kevin, one thing that we find out is Jen, Jerry's wife, who I thought in episode 5, it was super interesting that his good friend of his, like, didn't even know he had a wife. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It was a detail that stuck out to me. She was with him, allegedly in India, allegedly where they were opening an alleged orphanage. Which...
Oh, my God. Look, this guy has done, apparently, has no other philanthropic endeavors.
He has a yacht. Is that philanthropic?
He has a yacht, but is he giving to the United Way?
He brought an island from Tucker Carlson. Is that philanthropic?
No, it's not. Because this is where I'm going to start by getting into charity, building an orphanage in India. Which, hey, okay, we know that there are problems in India, and that's not to make light of that, but it's just not where most people start with their charitable work.
It's very specific.
Usually it's got to start at home. I mean, wouldn't somebody, was this his idea? Anyway, it just like, is it fishy? Yeah, it's fishy as fuck. Well, it's FAF.
So Jen goes with him on this trip. She's allegedly with him when he, quote quotes, dies. And she brings a body back in a coffin that is buried in Canada. Thoughts?
Well, the whole idea, and we have to talk about, like, why not exhume the body? That's sort of a whole other topic. But look, if it's not Jerry in that coffin, which would answer a lot of questions, if it's not Jerry in that coffin, then I find it hard to believe that she wouldn't know that she wouldn't have taken that body. She wouldn't have seen him in the hospital. She wouldn't have taken that body and brought it home and had,
She's in on it.
What's she doing right now, though?
That's what I want to know.
If he's hanging out in Phuket or something, is she just in Edmonton? Like
she's
hanging
back,
out,
and I think
time?
Nova Scotia. She's in Canada,
Halifax. Yeah,
I googled this because I kind of wanted to get to the end, find out because there are in real life a lot of unanswered questions, like can we exhume the body? Well, she gave a bunch of money back.
I have a question about that part though.
Yeah,
when you get the Canadian authorities, Toby, I kept thinking about so. Obviously, we know that Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, for a large part of the population who've never heard podcasts about it, for instance, this is just like an imaginary bullshit monopoly money thing that no one cares about on the internet, right? So I kept thinking about I don't want to say she's imaginary bullshit, like the Maura Murray case and sort of the pressure that this online community has put on authorities to take real life action to dig in a basement and send troops up to the forest. Part of me thinks that if you are a member of the RCMP and you're used to dealing with crimes that have to do with fraud that are in real banks, robberies and so forth, murders that you can see and hear and feel, does this sort of online community pressing for an exhumation, don't you kind of understand why they weren't yes, let's just dig that body up right now because all these internet people told us to.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the right reason to do anything. I mean, I would just assume that the RCMP's got to have some crypto specialists, though, right? I mean, that's got to be, there's a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
And gals.
And lady computer people.
Lady Mounties.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, we've talked about this before. I think like internet pressure, it doesn't seem like that should be an impetus for anybody to do almost anything.
Yeah.
It's about the most unthinking kind of advocacy you can possibly do is sit there and bang a few things on your keyboard. So,
but they're not wrong. A lot of people lost their life savings.
Well, they're actual victims.
Yeah.
They're not just interested trolls. They're,
I'm not saying what they lost wasn't important. I'm saying the authorities didn't take it seriously, maybe because of that. That was the impression I had. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I guess I don't have much of an opinion about that. I mean, I think as far as people getting bilked out of money, like, yeah, that's legitimate. You should follow that wherever it goes. But I wouldn't be bullied by people online to be like, oh, yeah, we're going to exhume this body. I mean, that's madness.
And then they open the coffin and there's nothing there.
There's nothing there. Yeah. There's just one Bitcoin lying in an empty coffin.
One Bitcoin would be a big find. There's like a dummy of like Mark Zuckerberg lying there. Laura, I have one question for you before we give our review. Michael Patron / Omar Dinani, Jerry's partner, silent, hidden partner, who turned out to be like a more substantial maybe partner for him previously, also a goddamn fucking scammer.
Yeah.
Doesn't it make you wonder, like, obviously the internet, but the sort of attraction that these kinds of people have to one another to perpetrate these schemes?
Recognizing game.
But don't you feel like if you're committing a crime in secret and bilking people, like, the idea that you'd be doing it with, like find somebody else who's into it, because we hear that Omar / Michael is older than Jerry and sort of like took him on as a protege. Like, what did you think was going on there?
Well, I think that Jerry, obviously, if he's started doing this when he was a teenager, was savvy and good at scamming people, and he was good at running it. And the other guy obviously had more experience, but based on his past transgressions, had to sort of lay low, and he needed like a front person. But it was very interesting to me that, as I was listening to that, I was just thinking, Bitcoin, it just is like ripe to be used as a scam. I mean, we heard the missing crypto queen. We hear this. I mean, you just keep hearing stories, and it's like a magnet for people like those two that we're just talking about, because I think there is that allure of getting in on the ground floor and having this diversified portfolio and being ahead of everybody else, and you're going to be rich when everyone else isn't, when we don't have paper money anymore and whatever. But, I thought it was interesting that there was such an effort to keep Omar out of the spotlight with this whole like, oh no, I don't have a partner. Oh, he's not involved anymore. Well, he was involved the whole time. So, I mean, I don't know. I go back to, I'm just getting some gold bullion, no Bitcoin.
Yeah. Kevin, a question for you. So I was reminded a lot of, in the Nexium stories that we reviewed, Keith Raniere, the head of this cult, which is also like a little bit of a scheme. We learn that he previously was the head of other pyramid schemes, like the whole like, vitamin thing.
Right.
Is there such a thing as an addiction to scamming, which I think this podcast does posit as a theory
You mean scammers?
Yeah.
Who are addicted?
Like scammers who are literally motivated by, because remember at one point in the podcast, Aaron says that it seems that Jerry has plenty of money at this point. Is he just addicted to being a scammer, addicted to scams? What do you think?
I think he's addicted to money. Because, he's been doing this since he's a teen. The goal is to get money.
I'm so bad at mad at my kids right now for not getting us that kind of money.
Yeah. But sometimes I suppose it's like the dog that catches the car, right? I mean, what do you do now? It certainly seems like if the money, as Ernst & Young, the forensic accountants are learning, the money wasn't in the digital wallets at the time that Jerry allegedly died, then is he just doing one of these scams where they say, well, we've been hacked and we can't do it, that he lost all the money, because that's what a Ponzi scheme is, a Peter to pay Paul. Rob from Peter to pay Paul. And so if there wasn't enough money to come in, it's all red ink. If this was not his plan to like live a new life necessarily, but to just get out of this latest scam, then, there's some evidence to that.
Weren't you surprised to hear, though, that there was this plan to, quote, go public? I mean, I kind of thought that was also a scam. They're probably just going to take the investors' money and then run. Because they couldn't go public, because as soon as you open the books, they'd find there was nothing.
Yeah, I mean, is there a chance that, so we've been doing this, by the skin of our teeth for so long that maybe we can do this and, quote, go legit? Yeah, maybe. I think, but I think there's a problem with it being cryptocurrency. Yeah. It's, just the nature of the industry, right?
Yeah, like that guy who just accidentally, lost the $18 million because he transferred it to the wrong account. And he's like, shit, I can't get it back now.
I actually felt bad for that guy.
Man, that sucks.
I also felt bad for the guy who worked for Jerry, who was just like his right-hand guy who had to release their whole text threads, who was just like Jerry's friend, like, hey, you getting burgers tonight? Like,
LOL, dude. Party on.
All right. Well, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out Exit Scam? It's a new podcast. The host is Aaron Lammer, who's also the host of one of my favorite podcasts called Longform. Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Exit Scam?
This is a thumbs up. I loved Aaron's delivery style. Especially with a story like this, it's just very entertaining in the way that he tells it. It's like you're hanging around with a friend who's telling you like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this story. But he tells it in such a laid back way. And I mean, this story has everything. We've got double life, Bitcoin, fake death. I mean, it just goes on. And I just found it super interesting. So
Tucker Carlson's Island.
I know. Another Tucker, like the Carlson family keeps showing up in everything lately. I mean, starting with Toby and the wine purse. I mean, so
wine purse.
Thumbs up.
The wine skin.
Can we please talk about that in the after show again? Remind our listeners about that. Toby, well, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Exit Scam?
I give it a thumbs up. I mean, there were times I didn't find it like super consistent. Like there were some parts of it which I thought were just fascinating. Like I thought the first episode was awesome and I was just so jacked up to listen to the rest of it. It's not that it really fell off. Like it was still a good podcast, but I don't think it kind of maintained that kind of sort of strangeness. And I don't know. It just, the first one I was like, oh my God, this is just nuts. And then after a while, it's like, oh, well, it's okay. It's a cryptocurrency scam, and that's what this deal is. And there were times that you could tell that, the hosts and the writer stuff are into the cryptocurrency stuff, because there was sometimes when I was like, all right, you can move along from this. But for the most part, it's good. Like I definitely enjoyed listening to it, learned quite a bit, and the story is crazy, and I'm interested in finding out how it all ends. I assume it's not actually going to end, but how the podcast ends.
Right. Kevin Flynn, what about you? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Exit Scam?
I'm going with a thumbs up. I thought that the way that they told a story about a complex crime is that they were able to boil it down to its simplest elements. And it's really fascinating to think, I'm on the lam with everybody's money, and there's almost nothing that you can do about it, except maybe, hey, RCMP, why don't you just go dig up the body like we've been saying the whole podcast? That might answers a couple of questions. I thought it went very well. I think that, episode 4 was the episode about let's get to know Jerry. And then episode 5 was let's get to know Jerry. And, I feel about that. I feel like, okay, we've established that. Move on to another narrative point. But overall, I think it's good. CBC's coming out with another podcast on this very topic in the near future, so it'll be interesting to see if they take a different tact. But the crime is enough, and I think easy enough to follow that you'll like it. Thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up for me, too. I think it says a lot about this podcast that all we talked about in our conversation about it was the crime.
And usually, the theme music.
Yeah, and the theme music. But very often in shows like this, we get very hung up on like details, the way that it's told, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I agree with Toby and Kevin. There are a couple issues there. It does feel a little stretched. Like the idea of encapsulating one aspect of the story into a whole episode. I don't think it's necessary here. And I understand, from a structural point of view, why you would do that. Okay, let's do this. Now in this episode, we're going to do this. And in this episode, we're going to do this. It does work in a couple of episodes, like in a great way. But I do agree with you. The Jerry episode and the fake account episode could have been combined. That being said, episode 5, which I believe as of the time of our podcast dropping is now on the Odyssey app, is literally just a phone interview, and it's freaking great. And it's like the only example of a phone interview I can ever point to that's great. So for me, this podcast is clean. I get what's going on. I am fascinated by the story. I think it's the right person telling it. And it's really nicely produced for the most part. So yeah, big thumbs up for me for Exit Scam.
The friendship is sharing deal.
Because I want one of your McNuggets.
And I need some of your Quarter Pounder.
There's a deal for everyone at McDonald's. Get one favorite like 10-piece chicken McNuggets, a Quarter Pounder, or a Big Mac and get another for just $1. Price and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.
Ready to pop the question? The jewelers at BlueNile.com have got sparkle down to a science with beautiful lab-grown diamonds worthy of your most brilliant moments. Their lab-grown diamonds are independently graded and guaranteed identical to natural diamonds, and they're ready to ship to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code WELCOME to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code WELCOME at BlueNile.com for $50 off. BlueNile.com.
Ba-da-ba-dum.
I guess that means we're in the business section, right, Kevin?
Ba-da-ba-dum.
Kevin, you have kind of an epic announcement to make in our business section for our fans who maybe aren't on our Patreon right now.
Yeah, so at the end of June, we're going to have the Patreon free preview week.
We're basically copying HBO, right?
If I do that again, can you put the echo
sure,
on?
I
like that.
Okay. Go ahead.
We're going to have the Patreon free preview week.
So, Kevin, we're basically cribbing HBO here?
Right,
what does this mean?
Well, when Showtime or HBO does a free preview weekend, we're doing this for a week. Whether or not you subscribe to Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/partners in crime media. And we're going to unlock selected episodes from our podcast library. That includes a couple of episodes of the Crime Writers on After Show, Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Laura's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Married with podcast.
Kevin, can you please unlock the Sasquatch episode of Married with podcast?
Oh, sure.
That is my special request. The greatest question we have ever received on Married with podcast.
Right. So for the last week in June, actually, we're going to start from Father's Day, which is the 20th to the 27th of June. All that week, you can look at our, go to the Patreon, and you'll see not everything, but a couple of things will be unlocked, and you can have a listen, and if you like it, you can also join right there.
So there's no call to action here. It's just, good luck, guys. Wait for the last week in June.
Yeah, just be standing by. Or you can join now.
Yes, why should people join now? What is on our Patreon right now? Just so that you can tell people, this is how I think about it. If you join our Patreon now and listen to the, 200 plus episodes that are back there of all kinds of stuff, Toby's Book Club, Laura's podcast, Married with Podcast, and the After Show. If you join now and listen, you're going to want to make a sales pitch for people to listen for free later, right? So they can also join.
Yeah.
Maybe think about joining. But what is going to be on there this week that will be the substance of that sales pitch?
Okay, well, we've got the Crime Writers on After Show, and we're going to be talking about, for once and for all,
oh, we got to get the story.
Laura's neighbor.
From Vermont.
When
she was growing up.
He was killed in a volcano accident?
A volcano explosion.
Explosion or something. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to find out all about that because we've been intrigued by all those little nuggets she's been dropping. We also have a new episode of Leave It to Bricker out. And in this one, Laura tries to get Fireman Ken to watch Line of Duty.
Nice.
The British police show.
Yes.
And he doesn't say it, but in my head, he's thinking... Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and the Wee Donkey. Also coming out later this week.
And he also uses the word pecoritis.
Nice.
Pecoritis. Some people grow out of it, Laura. But
what did we just say we wanted Toby to talk about in the after show? We had a thing 5 minutes ago. Got to go back in the tape and figure that out. We'll figure it out, Toby.
think it was Tucker Carlson.
Yes!
The wine
Tucker
purse.
Carlson and the wineskin, yes.
That's right. Tucker Carlson and Toby Ball went to college together. And they were at the same party once.
And they have all the same opinions.
They have all the same opinions. That's where Toby learned to tie a bow tie.
Let's cancel Toby right now.
Yeah.
My diploma just
On
gets
next week's
less impressive by the week.
On next week's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Toby and his special panel talk about the book Veritas. Toby, remind us who was on your panel this month.
It was a very awesome, fun panel. Had Dr. Shiloh from LA Not So Confidential. Had Lauren Bright Pacheco from Murder in Oregon and Happy Face Murders. And I had Julia Henderson, who goes by Jules, I found out, who did Bikram and the Sterling Affairs and other stuff like that. So I feel like this, like with all of the deep dives, but it's just, it's just smart, nice people.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a fun evening for me when we record, and I'm glad that some people like to listen to it.
What's amazing to me is that when you look at like our like relatively small community of patrons, right, who are fiercely devoted to this show, we are attracting Toby's A-list talent to our book club. It's really impressive, Toby. People love what you do. And I know that our Patreon listeners just love the book club. Some of them want to be there when you do it. Like, nice job on these bookings, Toby. I'm incredibly impressed.
We actually had a patron guest.
Yes.
Who we were talking about, so this book is about this faked papyrus that was supposed to be the gospel of Jesus's wife. And actually, one of our patrons is in divinity school right now. So she popped in, and it was super interesting what she had to say as well.
It's really incredible. A-list book club. So join our Patreon so you can check that out. Kevin, before we wrap up the business section, do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Carrie Savage and Nancy Madden. Bless you.
And once again, Kevin, if people want to join our Patreon to get all this stuff, how do they do it?
It's at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
And also, I will just put one plug. Go to our website for free, crimewriterson.com. Sign up for our newsletter. It's freaking awesome. You will not regret it in any way. You will not. It is my favorite newsletter that I get, and I get all the newsletters from all the outlets.
And on Wednesday, we've got a new episode of These Are Their Stories coming out. We're looking at the series finale of Criminal Intent.
That's right.
Episode.
All right. So, thus ends the business section, Kevin.
Cut that music.
Moving on.
All of a sudden, my neighbor said to me, wow, talent, there is a bag here and I can hear the noise. I said, what sound are you hearing? He said, come and see. So I came out of my stall and it was going ting-com, 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 ting-com.
In 1999, a nail bomb detonated in an open-air market in South London's Brixton neighborhood. With no one claiming responsibility and the bomber's motives unclear, black residents struggled to get police to believe the attack was a hate crime.
And you had police officers saying things to you like, we want to catch the bomber as much as you do. And you'd say to them, no, you don't, because where do you live? You're not living in an area that's a target for this.
The bombing coincided with the rise of the far-right British National Party, attracting white supremacists to the cause of purging immigrants from the UK. It would take later bombings in a Bengali neighborhood and a gay pub for authorities to connect the crimes to a neo-Nazi, all with the help of an anti-fascist spying within the racists' ranks.
It was so much worse than I thought it was going to be, really. It was hardcore.
The Netflix documentary Nail Bomber Manhunt looks back on the panic that gripped England for 3 consecutive weekends. It also tells the story of Arthur, the informant who went undercover among the Nazis and identified the bomber. Now we are going to be talking about plot points for Nail Bomber Manhunt. So to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes to hear our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. Now, Toby, this documentary, it's tight. It's short. Like, basically, it packs a lot into like an hour-long package, right?
Yeah, I kind of wish it had switched lengths with Sasquatch. Because this, in fact, seemed like it had a whole bunch of super interesting things that it only sort of touched on or just had to blow by. And so it's super tight. It moves really fast. There's not a second wasted. You barely have time to take a breath. But I did kind of feel like I would have been perfectly happy to spend, another 2 or 3 hours with them spending a little more time on some of these issues, like the racist right in Britain and its relationship to the BNP and these interesting ethnic neighborhoods that were targeted. Like we hear about these things in pop culture. Like I don't really know London, but Brick Lane is the Monica Ali book. Electric Avenue is that horrendous Eddie Grant song. And
sing a couple of verses. I don't remember it, Toby. How does it go?
Yes, you remember it, Kevin. I feel quite clear that you remember it. And so I don't know. There was just so much interesting stuff there. I wish they'd spend a little bit more time, but not everything can be 3 or 4 hour long limited series.
This, I think, could have been 2, though. Laura, so at the beginning, we hear about the bombing in Brixton, and we get some people who were actually there in the day of the bombing that we then see in historical footage, including my 2 favorite characters we've seen in a documentary in a long time, the 2 blokes manning the bootleg music tape stall, who basically recount what it was like to work there, what the atmosphere was like, how they sold the bootleg tapes right across the street from the legit music store. But then we actually see them in the real footage in the aftermath of the bombing. Like, what did you think of sort of setting this up and the fact that they were able to find and get these people to go on camera to retell this story?
I loved this part because, they weren't the only ones that they were able to do this with. But those 2 guys were definitely my favorite because they're sitting in this like diner and they're talking and they're just kind of recounting like, oh, it was like the Our Price music store, not your price. It's our price. Ha ha ha. But then they're talking about the day that the bombing happened. And I loved it. It's horrible, but because the bombing is like freaking horrific. But when they're talking about, and I tell this story all the time and people don't believe it, about how the crackhead guy came along and actually took the backpack that the bomb was in. He nicked the backpack, but he left the bomb there. And they're all like, what? Oh, my God.
I've told this story many times. That crackhead took the bomb out of the bag and nicked the bag. Nah, you're joking me. No way did it happen. Yes, I swear down it happened, man.
But then when you go to that historical footage, you have to look at it for a minute and you're like, oh, that is the same guy.
That's them.
And that's them. And he was talking about my pants, that my mom just got me new pants or whatever. And I didn't want them to cut I think it was that guy that didn't want his pants cut off because his mom just gave him the new pants. And
you know what was the best part about him, Laura? When he was when I opened the bag, it was like a cartoon bomb. It was like tick, 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 tick. And there were 2 bells and it was like a bomb in a cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm honestly, just the descriptions of the time and the place, I felt like I was right there. What do you think of those guys, Kevin?
You mean British Matt Damon and Ben Affleck?
How do you like them apples?
I like them, yeah. Oh, man, I love those guys. And it's good because they added a bit of color and levity before what becomes a very heavy anecdote about, the bombing and the injuries that were caused by that. But like Laura, I did appreciate sort of that being lifted up high and kind of starting to giggle a bit in order to be emotionally brought down by the seriousness of what transpires.
So I want to talk about Arthur, who went undercover for this independent anti-fascist magazine and organization that still exists for 10 years among neo-Nazis. He went into this, these party meetings where basically he was expecting to have to spend a lot of time waiting for the racist stuff to come. And day one, he goes in and they're like, no, Hitler was right. We hate Jews. We are Nazis. So the thing we learned in the documentary, and Toby, full disclosure, I did interview the director of this for the Netflix podcast, but he told me, and it's true in the documentary, touches on it briefly, Arthur was so deep undercover for so long, and the reason that we don't see his identity in this is because there are many, many people, including people close to him, who still believe to this day that he is a Nazi, even though he's undercover in this organization. Can you imagine, Toby, just the scope of what that is, to dedicate yourself to hanging out with these people all of the time and having that become who you are?
Yeah. It's intense. And I think he talks about and this is like stuff that gets in like good spy literature and probably good undercover crime literature about how when you're that sort of immersed in that culture, you have to be on your guard about it leaking into your own psyche, right? And I think he talks about how, the stuff's, in some ways starts to make sense. And he's like, if it's starting to make sense for me, just imagine somebody like I'm like on the absolute opposite end of the political spectrum. Like if you're more inclined toward that viewpoint, like you can see exactly how it's seductive once you get kind of immersed in it. So I thought he was a really interesting character. The first time we see him, I had these bad like cocaine island vibes.
Oh, come on, Toby.
Well, he's just like
Cocaine
sitting and he's like, give me a beer.
Could I have a beer? Of course you can. Thank you.
Why did you agree to meet me?
It's an interesting story, and I've got a different perspective.
I mean, there is like a weird thing with the way their interviews are staged and lit, I think, because, they're putting them in these situations, but they're so like it's in an empty bar, it's like we're going to put you in a bar and it's going to be empty and we're going to have a whole bunch of lights on you and film you from different angles. It's just like a strange, I found it odd. I kind of liked it, but it was weird.
Kind of artsy.
Yeah, we've seen an awful lot of these documentaries, and I like to give credit to filmmakers who give some thought about the setting of where they're going to do these interviews, and not just do it in front of a scrim like they've did it for decades.
You mean
right?
like we've been in front of for like many shows that we've been on?
Right. We're just gonna
a Holiday Inn with like a curtain behind us.
Yeah, a scrim.
I was in a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah. All right, well, that's different. Look, I'm thinking about what was the Night Stalker one? We had the two cops, and they were in a bar at night.
Yeah, they were always doing bars, yeah.
And then there was the one Alabama Snake where the woman was interviewed on the dock at night. Okay, that one was a little weird, but I think I got to give credit to filmmakers who think about these things and do something differently. What I like in particular about this one is that it was done in front, in some shops or restaurants or bars or whatever it was, but they had big picture windows looking out onto the street, and it was nighttime in London, and it sort of brought London in to the setting of the interviews in a way that wasn't heavy-handed, right? You just got a sense of where they were without it being too distracting. There was like one soundbite where, as I think it was one of the investigators, as she finishes up in the background, like a police car goes by in the street, and they kind of held the shot long enough to see it go by. I like that. And so, it's different, and maybe not everybody's going to do it well, and it's going to look weird sometimes, but yeah, I give him credit for this.
Now, let's talk about the investigation, Laura. One of the things that was interesting to me was that after the first, so basically we have, 3 bombs, one that went off in a black neighborhood, that one went off in a Bengali neighborhood, and that one went off in a gay neighborhood, right? So there are 3 sort of groups being targeted. The cops in London put on the case, the woman that we hear anyway in the film, an investigator at New Scotland Yard who has no terrorism experience. Like, it seems like the people in the community who are the activists play a much more significant role in investigating this. And you have like all these inexperienced cops who are just like, I don't know if it's race motivated. I don't know, but it clearly is, right? I mean, I found that interesting and sort of very timely. Like the little amount of interest the police seem to put in this when we know how they reacted, for instance, to IRA bombings. Like, it was very different, right?
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I had a hard time coming to sort of understand how they didn't take it more seriously from the beginning, because the details of the bombing were so horrific and the injury was just so catastrophic. And, that X-ray that they show of a nail in a child's head. So, I mean, this wasn't like a little deal. But it was, so that I was kind of a little bit confounded, like, okay, so why aren't they maybe But I was thinking, okay, it's a different time and place. But when you're talking about it being timely, I mean, one of the things I kept thinking about as I was watching this is, different media that we've listened to or watched recently and talked about with like domestic terrorism being at an all-time high right now, and that actually being more of a threat in the U.S. than like since the Oklahoma City bombings. And then looking at this, seeing that same type of dynamic at play. But yeah, the Scotland Yard lady, I mean, she looked like she was like 15 years old in that picture that they put up of her. And I was like, okay. I did enjoy when they finally did charge the guy, how they tripped him up. But
we're going to talk about that in a second.
I guess, guys, I didn't get the impression that the police weren't taking the crime seriously. I felt like they didn't give full credence to the motive being racially motivated.
Yeah.
That they kind of kept all their options open. The activists in the street said, no, look, we're a black community and this is what it's like to live here. And of course, that's why this was the target.
We also heard about the mistrust in the black community of the police for good reason. One of my favorite scenes in this documentary is when the reporters are talking to some black teenagers in the neighborhood, and they're like,
a senior policeman who runs this area was telling me today that the advice he'd give you lot is to think seriously about joining the police force. He hasn't got enough.
There is one issue I have with this documentary that we were watching with my son Henry. He also felt there is like a note of optimism here that all these people came together and like hate didn't win.
Yeah.
And Henry, my 19-year-old son, was like, I don't know. Hate seems to be doing pretty well these days. So, Toby, don't you just feel like we are like in a carousel, just like repeating the same nationalist, racist, neo-Nazi, anti-black, anti-people of color? Like, we're just on a carousel, right? Isn't this what this documentary is showing us?
Yeah. I mean, because you catch one guy, you definitely want to catch him. And I think it, on the most superficial possible level, it's like, hey, we care about your community. We found this guy who like dropped a nail bomb in the middle of it. But yeah, I mean, does that actually address, like, if that led to some like larger social reforms? I don't think they brought it up in that documentary. I mean, it's just this guy, and they caught him. And I guess like maybe the BMP sort of faded. I don't know if they were trying to connect those two occurrences, but
those same talking points are in the political mainstream today. We hear the BNP guy. It doesn't sound a whole lot different from some of the things Boris Johnson has said. Certainly not some of the things that we've heard from our own political leaders here in the U.S., the xenophobic nationalist talking points, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think the victory, whatever it is like completely transient and just applies to this one case. But it doesn't feel like, I mean, I didn't come away with it being like, oh, I guess they worked out their differences and now everybody gets along.
Yeah.
Like Fox Mulder, like, I want to believe, I want to be positive and think the best of people. And like the guy says at the end, why hate when I can just go have a beer?
In the long term, the haters can never win. And it must be horrible to be consumed with hate, Think about all the things you can't enjoy because you're full of hate. Today's Friday. I'm going to go home and have a beer.
But the whole Santa Claus illusion has just been ripped from my eyes.
We're
hateful people just hate forever.
Yeah, I mean, there's legislation in like state houses all across the United States saying.
So
that,
I see how they want to like be positive at the end. Why not have a happy ending? You captured the guy and everything like that. But I just, I don't know if that's really the state of play on the ground in Brixton these days.
Or anywhere. So, Laura, we need to talk about one other story element. So after Copeland is arrested, he basically comes up with this defense that he's not mentally fit to stand trial. And there's a whole legal proceeding around that. And we have a cop who sets up a little honey trap for him, decides to pretend to be Patsy, a loving admirer of Copeland's. This cop believes that if he just pretends to be a lady interested in this guy will admit that in fact he is not, he's just pretending to be not of sound mind. And it works.
Yeah.
What did you think of this guy and his tactics? Good idea, bad idea? What do you think?
I kind of loved it because it's like this older, has been around the bend a few times cop. And again, he's sitting in like a bar somewhere. But I loved like the way that they set this up. I liked a lot of the cinematography in this. And I liked where we show the letters, but he had very like the handwriting even. I just felt like I was being fooled a little bit watching this.
You were seduced,
I
Laura?
was by the handwriting, by Patsy's handwriting. But going back and forth, and the fact that like he was getting into this mindset, but as it went on, and then it became clear that Copeland, the bomber, is becoming pretty obsessed with Patsy. Out comes the story just like they thought it would or hoped it would, that he fooled them all. He fooled the doctors and all this, and it's going to help his trial. Then knowing that the jury was able to see those letters. But I don't know, the old guy writing the letters just kind of cracked me up a little bit because I was like, that was like the perfect person to be doing that.
Yeah, I love that
Nazi
guy.
Catfish. This fall on Netflix.
It reminded me of two things. It reminded me of that cop in Keene, New Hampshire, who's been posing as like a 15-year-old girl online for 15 years and just like catching.
25.
Oh my God.
McLaughlin or something. Yeah, he's been forever.
Yes. It also reminded me of another famous murder case here, the Manuel Goering case, where he pleaded insanity, the legal insanity, and the FBI intercepted letters from him to, I think, his family, like Argentina or something.
Somewhere in South America.
Where he was writing in Spanish about, ha, 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 I am saying I'm insane, and they believe me. And the FBI was like, hey, look, we have you here saying. Anyway, it's just, I don't know. I thought that was a fascinating aspect of the case. All right, well, I think we should do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out the very compact documentary Nail Bomber Manhunt on Netflix. Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Nail Bomber?
Yeah, I'll go with thumbs up for this. I appreciated that it was short. I mean, for me, it was kind of heavy material, like the severity of the injuries and the destruction from a nail bomb is pretty awful stuff to hear about. But I felt like this was like an hour and 15, an hour and 20. It really gave you kind of a nice overview. I liked they used some creative sort of cinematography in this in terms of where they filmed people. They had a really effective technique that they used to kind of convey what it felt like to the victims right immediately after a bomb went off that I thought was really effective. And they had all the people that you would want to hear from. Now, they did not include a lot about the actual bomber. And I think that was deliberate. And I think that it was designed not to put the focus on him, but maybe to put the focus on the people that survived this and sort of the strength of their spirit to have gone on, despite the fact that, as we talked about earlier, the world is still, unfortunately, got a lot of these type of events going on. But I think overall it was pretty interesting, and it was told in a condensed way that was, a good overview.
Toy Ball, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Nail Bomber on Netflix?
Did you, first a question, did you find out, were those actual like interrogation tapes that he was playing?
They were recreated from the transcript of the interrogation.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But it was transcript,
clear.
So it was what he said. Yeah, I don't think they
actor recreations of.
I don't think they indicate that it was an actor.
No,
I don't think so either. Yeah,
because I was like, man, these guys like don't or at all.
I mean, really, like
for
the audio quality
situations.
of these old 1999 tapes is incredible.
They would not
Okay, now that we got that all cleared up, yeah, I mean, I liked it. Kevin was talking about thoughtfulness and where they were placing people. I mean, I think. They tried to do some different things. I mean, there was like more sort of like pulse pumping music than you're used to. There's some kind of abstract stuff you saw every once in a while on the screen when things were going on. So that was all cool. I thought it all worked. Again, I guess we review what's there, not what we wish was there. But I, like 100%, could have watched a 4-part series on this and been absolutely riveted the whole time. But for one really quick thing, there's don't blink, don't get up and go to the bathroom. You just gotta stick in there for the whole thing. So thumbs up. I thought it was good.
Kevin?
Yeah, thumbs up for me too. It's short and sweet. It's they know how far they can tell a story and keep it interesting. It was restrained. It ran an hour 20. And there was more that they could have done, but they chose not to, right? You're right. We could have gone on a lot longer about the BNP or life in those neighborhoods or the mechanics of, building a bomb and domestic terrorism and whatnot. They could have told us a lot more about the bomber, but they didn't. But proportionately speaking, I think, right, it was fast on all those, but as far as how they sliced up the pie, I think it was balanced in that way. Just, in these 10-part series, it's just a bigger pie. So, a good job of telling a historical story, getting some great voices to recall their experiences, and sort of knowing what it can achieve without getting long in the tooth, as they would say. So thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up for me too. I will say the one thread that when Toby talks about this potentially being a longer series and we don't want to review what's missing, the one thread I really would have loved to have fleshed out a little bit more was the anti-fascist movement in England at that time in the 90s. I mean, Antifa, quotey quotes, in the United States has been in the news for a couple of years now, and we can call it like a fake construct here in political lingo, but it is a real movement that's been going on for decades in Europe that is a real anti-fascist, anti-racist movement that's made a lot of waves, including in this case. And I just would have loved to have heard more about the organizations infiltrating the nationalist Nazi movements, how they worked, what they were trying to achieve, and why, for instance, the police actually listen to them, when they're just like a magazine. Anyway, that's the one part that I wish was fleshed out a little more. I do think this documentary is very tight. I wasn't expecting to like something called Nail Bomber as much as I did, but I really liked it. So thumbs up for
the friendship is sharing deal.
Because I want one of your McNuggets.
And I need some of your Quarter Pounder.
There's a deal for everyone at McDonald's. Get one favorite like 10-piece chicken McNuggets, a Quarter Pounder, or a Big Mac and get another for just $1. Price and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Me. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the crime
of the week.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is making a fashion statement. In an effort to blunt the influence of Western culture on the communist nation, the government has banned certain clothing and hairstyles. In order to guard against the, quote, exotic and decadent lifestyle of capitalism, citizens can no longer wear skinny jeans or nose piercings, and no T-shirts with capitalist branding on them.
Take that, Polo.
They've even banned mullets and spiky hair. Sorry, Toby. Good news, North Korean men can still choose from 15, quote, non-socialist haircuts. Women have more choices, like part on the left or part on the right, or the ever-popular ears.
Let's see your ears. Oh, look at those ears. That's
exciting.
Sexy, yeah.
Panel, if we were to block the influence of Western culture in a foreign nation, mullets might not be where we'd start. Tell me, panel, what would you ban in North Korea to save them from America? Laura Bricker, what do you think?
Oh, God. This is like I'm going to say Netflix, but they don't have internet, so that doesn't work. Designer yoga pants. I mean.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
The fashion of the pandemic.
Toby Ball, what would you ban in North Korea to save them from the Western monster that is American and capitalism?
I guess I fixated on the mullet thing because I was going to say those Zubaz like zebra pants that they used to have.
Yes, yes.
It's decadence.
Kevin Flynn, what about you?
Maybe the cronut?
Oh.
Yeah, why have,
Yeah.
Those were good. Didn't we have some of those in Nashville?
Wasn't that a croissant thing? That's crow.
Oh, no, we had the
right?
biscuit ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I forget. But yeah, something like deep fried butter, like anything you'd get at the Iowa State Fair. Don't let North Korea get that.
I'm going to say anything I have to do with the Tiger King, except for Carol Baskin. She can stay. The rest of that shit, the Tiger King himself, those people whose zoo just got taken away from them. Thank goodness the Tiger King, buyout people just got
the
their
cute
whole zoo
guy
taken
with
away.
all the Harley jackets.
Oh my God. Those people cannot have any influence anywhere else in the world. But Carol Baskin, North Korea, you'd be lucky to have her. All right, we should probably end it on that note. But before we do, Lara Bricker, do we have a cat of the week this week?
So I'm going to go with a dog this week. I've just pulled this.
Yay! That's my favorite animal.
Rebecca, I'm stunned.
I've only said that 47 other times in this podcast.
But this is a dog that we all know. It's a former past dog of the week. One of our most regular listeners, Tony Flanagan. Her dog,
Tony,
Lola, her beloved Lola, recently got out during the day. She didn't know where Lola was. They couldn't find Lola. So she was like, oh my God, what do I do? And I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been training for. So I gave Tony some tips.
Pet detective.
Yep. And from afar, I was like, do this, do that. And she's like, I've already done all that. So she put up signs. She went on the internet and they found Lola. A family had found Lola. And now I have information about how that came to be. So her husband, Tony's husband, went to the bank yesterday, and there was a woman who works there who is always in the bank, and apparently Tony talks a lot. So the woman had seen that the post...
Tony is the Lara Bricker of her
She is, because she just picked up a stray dog this week as well. And so when the woman in the bank found out, she took a poster of Lola that Tony's husband had made and drove around the neighborhood showing it to people after she got off of work. So the random bank lady ended up showing it to someone, and guess what? They knew that this was somebody's dog now. So Lola was returned. So I'm happy that she's
All
back.
right.
Nice.
I was like, oh my God, I can't take any missing animals during the pandemic. I really can't. So that was like a bright spot in the world right now.
Tony Flanagan, I think you got to follow in Lara Bricker's shoes and become your own certified pet detective.
Yeah.
Lara Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you, perhaps on the online forum known as Twitter, and ask you for tips on how they can find their missing pets, how can they find you there?
They can find me at Lara Bricker.
And Toby, if folks want to reach out to you and say, hey, I really want to see those guns, Toby, take a photo of you in your Thunders jersey, how can they find you on Twitter?
It's not going to happen. It's at TobyBallNH. And Lara, are you licensed to practice in California?
Well, it was just informal advice.
You think her license
Are you
is
licensed
real?
to practice anywhere?
Is this a real license?
Hey, man, I don't know.
I printed it out myself, Toby.
Kevin, are you licensed to umpire high school baseball games in California?
I'm not licensed to umpire anything anywhere.
Is that a transferable license, or is it just New Hampshire? That's a serious question. Like, can you go down to Delaware and umpire once you get your license?
There is a process for transferring.
Here's what I've learned.
Yeah,
Once
there
you
is.
become an umpire, even if you're not licensed, everyone needs you because there are no umpires.
Every umpire I've worked with has been 75.
Kevin has literally umpired games of 6-year-olds playing t-ball because there's no one to do it. So, Toby, if folks do want to reach out to you to see those guns, and how can they find you on Twitter?
I said it already, at TobyBallNH.
Listen, it's important to reiterate it for the guns.
Okay, yeah,
Kevin,
just keep going. At TobyBallNH. Check out Strange Arrivals. All those things.
Kevin Flynn, if folks want to reach out to you and offer you jobs at $60 a game umpiring their kids' baseball games, how can they find you on Twitter?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
And if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you can find me at Reb Lavoie. You can also follow this fine show on Twitter at Crime Writers On. And really, you should consider joining our incredible community and our official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group. Support the show at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You will get so many podcasts, more than 200 episodes of the Crime Writers On Aftershow, Married with Podcast, Lara Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast. Our theme song was composed and performed by Ty Gibbons. Our line editor is the incredibly handsome Olivia Burdett. The executive producer of this program is the love of my life, Kevin Flynn.
Yeah.
This show was recorded in the Loft of the Bodega in Basil Studio.
The what the fuck?
The Yoga Loft above the bodega in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement where we store our 64-character random passwords for all of our Bitcoins. How stressed out are you, Kevin?
I can't take it.
On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later. Good news. North Korean men can still... Toby, we've been doing this for 6 fucking years.
Is it an emergency? It might be an emergency.
It's his alarm going off to take his vitamins for that gun show.
No, it's my son calling. It's probably something crazy going on in the basketball game.
Okay.
No, he's like, wrap this up, Rebecca, so Toby can watch the sports ball.
Partners in Crime Media.
Luxury is meant to be livable. Discover the new leather collection at Ashley with premium quality leather sofas, recliners, and more, all built to last. No matter how many spills, scuffs, or pet-related mishaps come its way, the leather collection at Ashley is made with the durability you need for the whole family. Shop the new leather collection at Ashley and find chairs starting at $499.99 and sofas at $599.99. Ashley, for the love of home.